Alright guys, we've avoided this like long enough. I was planning on saving on like a leak roundup when I finally return to Fairy Fountain News, but I think I need a little bit more time before I return to that. Once all of my assets are created and kind of ready to go, I think we'll be ready to actually relaunch that. And hopefully the Switch 2 won't be announced by then, or maybe it will be, and I'll just make a quick video like this one, kind of doing the same thing. But I'm still waiting on some assets and some finalization to ideas. So let's just say that last year when I started that, it was almost like a beta, and it did really well, surprisingly. So I'm really thankful for that. Thank you guys so much for doing all that. Having the support and the comments and stuff like that. So I'm really appreciative of that. And then we'll just have that. That was like the soft launch, and then we'll have like the real launch once I get all my assets created. So be looking forward to that. And I'm just like kind of hoping that, because the Switch 2 is going to get announced probably before my stuff is finished. And the unfortunate thing about that is that I won't be able to cover it on the show with all the new shiny graphics and stuff. So, well, yeah, I just wanted to make a new show, and the Switch 2 was kind of the reason why, and now we it just kind of won't line up, but that's okay. I'll still make a video on it, of course, as if we were doing Fairy Fountain way back in the day. That's okay. Anyway, so I've been avoiding this for way too long. It's time to talk about the Switch 2 leaks. And the thing about the Switch 2 this time versus like the NX or like the 3DS, for example, the times leading up to a new Nintendo console are always very fun and very interesting to see. Say for example, like going into the PS5, like it's not very exciting to really talk about because it's just going to be a new, beefier, shinier PlayStation. There's nothing to really talk about except for like, oh, what is the console potentially going to look like? And that's the same for Xbox and same for, next gen PC hardware. Like, we kind of know what to expect when it comes to that stuff, and if they do something crazy and wacky on top of that, then that's cool and that's interesting. But typically when you're talking about speculation and stuff, there's not really a whole lot to specifically talk about. And you usually just say, oh yeah, it's just going to be nicer looking graphics. Like, if you look at some of the current gen PS5 games and compare them to PS4 games, it's pretty much just a regular generational jump at this point, if not even smaller compared to the PS3 to the PS4. You could just look at the Last of Us screenshots from the original game to the remaster to the Part 1 remake. And so you can just pretty much safely place your bets on certain speculation things when it comes to next gen PlayStation or next gen Xbox. Whereas with the Switch, it's a lot more fun to speculate on those things because you never know what Nintendo's gonna do, and very seldom do they do an iterative system. They've only pretty much ever did that from the NES to the SNES, and that was of course during the early days. The Game Boy to the Game Boy Color to the Game Boy Advance, which wasn't like the Game Boy Advance is just so much farly different than the original Game Boy. So, but it's still under the same name and stuff. And then the DS to the 3DS, or I guess if you want to, DSi, 3DS. And so even then, during those days, we're like, well, we don't know if they're going to make an iterative system, and so we can still talk about it and speculate. And so obviously it's going to be more powerful than the previous hardware, but how much powerful? Because we can kind of expect what PlayStation is going to do and have current gen graphics, whereas Nintendo is usually 1 or 2 steps behind with that sort of stuff. So it's fun to see, okay, so how much more powerful is this system going to be compared to the last, and what is the new gimmick going to be? And Nintendo consoles always have a new or interesting gimmick that the previous generation doesn't have. And so, that makes the speculation a lot of fun. And especially, and again, here's the other thing too, even with the designs, like I said before, like you can kind of start speculating, oh, what's the next generation PlayStation going to look like? And obviously we didn't expect it to look like a Wi-Fi router, but it's usually going to have PlayStation isms. And if you take a look at like the PS2, PS3, PS4 line, it's PlayStation isms, right? You can kind of tell how it's going to go. But take a look at the Wii U to the Switch. night and day, right? And so you can kind of start speculating about how the hardware is going to look too, because it's always going to look kind of weird and wacky and different, because Nintendo's just the way that they are. Now here's the other thing, and that's the gimmick. So, going into the Switch 1, what is that gimmick going to be? Like, it was a desert in terms of information going in from 2015 to early 2016, and we had leaks and rumors, and we're kind of like, okay, so, but it was just a lot more fun, because it was like, oh, what could this console really be? And you couldn't really tell what was right and what was wrong, and people were saying, oh, it could be a handheld hybrid thing. It's like, no, that's impossible, because it was never really done before. Obviously now we have like the Steam Deck and the ROG Ally and stuff like that, but back in the day it was like, whoa, like, could this really be what Nintendo's cooking? And it's like, we always know that they're good at making their handheld console, but what if they bridge that gap? And that would be mind-blowing, right? And so it was like, what could this really be? And during that time, yeah, it was kind of rough in terms of game software line, but like nowadays, like, it's just like, going back and thinking about it, it was like, man, like, the speculation and the rumor mill and the predictions videos were just so much more interesting back in the day, because we really didn't know what this next gen thing was going to be. And now that we know, it was like, man, like, I look back on those times fondly, because it was really trying to sift through what was real and what was not. Enter the Switch 2 era of leaks and rumor. Technically, if you want to talk about it, this stuff started all the way back in 2020, when we were still thinking that it was going to be a Switch Pro. More than likely, Switch Pro probably did exist at some point in the plans, but COVID probably messed all that up, and we've talked about that multiple times on the channel. And so the leaks and the rumors pretty much just said it's just a beefier Switch, and we kind of expected that, and we kind of knew that. But going into the Switch 2 era of leaks, post Switch Pro, having just a beefier Switch is something that we expected, but it's very different for Nintendo, because usually they have way more than that, and it, again, like I said before, what's the new gimmick? What's the new, how's the system going to look? And so for the first time well, at least since I've been looking at news and leaks and rumors, this was just an iterative Switch. And it's something that we expected, something that Nintendo blatantly said at the top of last year, like, hey, this is going to be the Switch successor. Never once did they say, oh, this is going to be the successor to the Wii U. They used the specific marketing that Nintendo Switch is here to stay. And so that was very different. And so going into the leaks, right, it's just like, there's a part of me that wanted to say, yeah, maybe the Switch could look a little different, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was just a better looking Switch. And so here we are, I think a little before December, but pretty much right when I stopped making videos, of course. We got a couple of handful of rumors, but pretty much since the top of the year last year, we've been hearing like, it's going to be 4K DLSS, it's going to have magnetized Joy-Con, but we've been hearing this stuff for a long time. But here's the thing, every single leaker pretty much, sometimes they said something that was different, but knowing what we know now, most of them were pretty much right, and none of them like provided any information that was contradictory to one another. And that's a weird thing, because if you go back to the NX leaks and rumors, like, you remember that like ovular shaped Nintendo console, that was completely wrong, right? But a lot of the leaks that we saw in the last year were 100% on the money. And like sometimes we get a mock-up and it may not look exactly how the Switch 2 will look, but like pretty much since the very beginning, we knew what this thing looked like, other than, being just a Switch, right? And there was no speculation needed, and a lot of people are saying, oh, this is not real, like, it can't possibly be real, and it's like, everyone's backing each other up, and as soon as we hit December, everything was just starting to come together, and we finally sort of saw what the Switch 2 could be. And it's like all the leaks and rumors that were leading up to that point were correct. No one was contradicting. Everyone was holding hands and saying kumbaya, this is the Nintendo Switch 2. And then we first got a look at what the Switch 2 could or is, and that was the Chinese 3D rendering of what the Switch was. And so basically what I took that as is that he compounded all of the leaks and the rumors with the, the top USB cable, the magnetized Joy-Con, the bigger SL and SR buttons, and he took that information and said, here, this is what I think the Switch 2 looks like based on all the leaks and rumors. And he was fucking on the money again. And it's like, we've never had that in a console leak, time, because he just made a 3D mock-up. He didn't say that he knew what the Switch 2 looked like. He just said, here's what I think the Switch 2 looks like based on all the leaks and rumors. And he was right. He was dead on, which is, I mean, there's might see like little inconsistencies looking back, but like that was the Switch 2. We were looking at it straight in the face and we didn't want to believe it. And then we got the manufacturing leak of the blue case that I talked about as well, and they pretty much showed the Switch 2 in those images, and that was the Switch 2. That was the Switch 2 as well. They just literally showed the Switch 2 without Nintendo's consent, and that was it. That was it right there. That was the freaking Switch 2. And then Dbrand did the exact same thing. Although they might have a little bit of inconsistencies, because I don't think the Joy-Con are going to have those solid colors, but that's okay because it was just a 3D modeling, right? But all in all, like, the buttons are correct, right? And the new sort of back rail button is correct. Everything was correct. And then we got another 3D rendering of what the Switch 2 could look like. We got another Chinese manufacturing case that again lines up with all of the other leaks and rumors. And then we got another mock-up with what potentially the dock could look like, and they weren't completely right, but because it was a little too short, but they got the rounded edges correct. And then what else did we get? Someone said that it's probably just going to be called the Nintendo Switch 2. Here we are a few months later. And then we got images of what the potential dock could look like, and then people were speculating, oh, this can't be true because the background is AI generated. No, that was the Switch 2. There's no question about it. And then, but just the thing is that I haven't seen a Nintendo Switch 2 model or leak that did not support the immediate last one. And usually there's tons of different sources, tons of different places that people are getting these information from, and they all either contradict each other, or we get one of those NX weird spherical things that doesn't exist. And instead we're getting all of these things, and again, maybe they're not specifically the Switch 2 in hand. There might be like a 3D rendering or whatnot, but like, they all back each other up, and they're all the Switch 2, and that's the thing that's interesting. And then we learned about the C button, and then we learned about obviously we knew about the magnetized Joy-Con, but we were able to see that in action. More renderings. At that point, we started to realize that the Switch is probably going to come only in black and white, and that the buttons and the joysticks are what's going to be colored, or specifically behind it. Then we just straight up got the motherboard, and this is what got people talking as well, because based on the images, they're like, oh, there's no way that the Switch 2 is this powerful, and usually Nintendo doesn't do anything like that. And I mean, or maybe like the hardware is too old still, and it's like that's kind of what happened with the Switch 1. And so there was speculation talking about that, but I really do and wholeheartedly believe that the Switch 2 is going to be as slim as possible, right? And the hardware is going to be purely reliant on AI upscaling and stuff, in order to continue to keep that slim form factor. And then we got new images of the Joy-Con, and that's when Joy-Con speculation started to happen. But when I looked at the Joy-Con, I'm like, this is the same Joy-Con we've been seeing for months now, right? There's nothing different about it. Like, originally I thought that the little slot on the side of the Joy-Con was supposed to be like for another like SD card or something like that, but instead it's just I can show right here. So like if you take the Joy-Con off, there is like a little slit in the bottom there, and if you look at the Joy-Con, there is a little bit of a slit there too. It's kind of hard to see, but there's like railing, there's like It's basically like a wired connection, and that's basically what that little slot is for. Because on the side of the Switch, there's that little chip, basically, to have a wired connection. And then people started to see, oh, there must be like a little optical sensor on the side of the Joy-Con. What could that possibly be? And then, lo and behold, we finally get our Nintendo Switch 2 gimmick and what's going to set it apart to the last Switch. And that is the potential that you can take your Joy-Con. Let's see, can I even show this? Oh, that's the wrong one. That you can take your Joy-Con, go like this, and use it as a mouse. And you could potentially, maybe use the side buttons or these two buttons as like mouse clicks, or maybe even potentially that bigger side button there. And you could use the Joy-Con as a mouse. And that's so, like, even though the Legion Pro kind of did that already, this is going to be huge for Nintendo, because this allows a lot of PC games to be ported to the Switch, and potentially for Nintendo to do a lot more with it themselves. And that's very interesting to me, because not only are we potentially able to get even better control in Mario Maker, but also Mario Paint and Mario and Wario on NSO, and what else? Like Pikmin could be controlled even better with that. And so again, that was pretty much all speculation. That is I personally believe that is in the Joy-Con 100%. What it's going to be used for, I don't know. Maybe it is that it's a mouse sort of thing, but again, that was purely speculation. And then that's when at that point we knew pretty much 100% what the Joy-Con will look like, and that the colors for each respective Joy-Con will be behind the joystick and on the railing. And otherwise it'll be probably like gray, black, and white. And then, yeah, that was pretty much it. And it's just, the reason why I wanted, and then, okay, sorry, a few days ago, we got the CES, leak from Genki, which just straight up showed the Switch 2. Previously, it's been, 3D modeling or, speculation whether or not it was real or not. But no, this is just the assets Nintendo gave them, and they're just straight up showing it. Now, they didn't actually have it on the show floor, but they did have like a 3D printing of it so that they can show their cases and stuff, and their third-party like charger, which was also magnets, right? But that's 100% the Switch 2 in that video that we've seen. Yeah, I'm using Centro. Screw you guys. I don't care. I don't believe everything that he says, but he reports on all and everything, leaks and rumors, so gives me a good roundup to talk about. And that was it. That's the Switch 2 right there. Like there it is. And there's no question about it. There's no speculation. There's nothing more to talk about with it. Because that's it. That's the thing. That's the Switch 2. And that's pretty much where we are today. I tried my best to cover everything that there was, but again, you see my point. From the very beginning, we knew what this thing was. There was no speculation. There's no sort of debating it. People were saying, oh, maybe this is wrong, but in hindsight, we were seeing the Switch 2 from the very beginning. And this is a very, very weird scenario, because usually we have many, many different interpretations or thoughts or 3D modelings, but from the very beginning, we knew what this thing was, even without the speculation. Or if you never looked at a leak or a rumor and you just said, oh yeah, this is just a beefier Switch with 4K and magnet Joy-Cons. We knew that from the beginning. Right? And now we're just seeing it. We're just literally seeing it. And looking back, we were literally seeing it at the beginning of December, right? Excuse me. Wow, that was disgusting. But we were literally seeing it at that point, and we didn't know. And now, post CES, that's the Switch 2. At this point, everyone but Nintendo needs to release this thing or announce this thing, or everyone except for Nintendo is announcing this thing. And They have yet to do so. At their time of recording this video, they still haven't done so. The thing that is bothering me a little bit is that Nintendo, there was a countdown from another leaker saying that potentially there's going to be Nintendo news on January 8th. I personally don't think that the Switch won't be announced until after Donkey Kong, but people are saying, oh, that has to be the day. Like, at this point, everyone under the sun is leaking the Switch 2 except for Nintendo, and everyone is in agreement on what this thing is, so this is probably it. And so this is a completely different and new situation where we're just waiting on Nintendo at this point to announce the thing, even though we've already seen it. And so January 8th came and went. Nothing really new to show for it. Nothing. I think there was Emio, the Smiling Man DLC. I'm not 100% sure like what that was, because the marketing is like a little weird. And then Pyoro said the day before that it was a Xenoblade X trailer, which it wasn't. It was today, right? It was the next day. And there was no really new information except for like the updated UI and what the expansion is going to be for this game, and they showed off a little bit of landscape from there. And then we also got Game Boy Lego, which why? Like, they have to know what they're doing. Like, I mean, there's no way that they see all these leaks and rumors of their damn console that's theirs and they own it, not even shutting down any of these channels or even me or any of these leakers that are just straight up posting the Switch 2 and blocking them, and Nintendo Ninjas aren't doing anything right now. And yet they have the audacity to release a Game Boy Lego system. And like, obviously this was probably in the plans from the beginning, but you know, what was the January 8th countdown for? Like, it clearly all of the big boy information came out the next day on the 9th. And like, what is going on? Like, Nintendo has to know that the Switch 2 is out there already, which means either they need to push the release ahead because it's just a video, right? It's probably already on their YouTube channel, or at least take down these, you know, these people with DMCAs, and they're not even doing that. And instead, we're getting these weird announcements without any regard to people. And it's just like, what is going on? Because again, we already know that the Switch 2 is internally delayed. So it's just like, at this point, it's a matter of time. Probably going to happen in the next 2 weeks. But what a weird year it's been in terms of this, because it's never been like this before. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little leak roundup video. If you did, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. As per usual, use code CrazyCat for 10% off your order, or you can hit the link in the description below and it'll automatically populate for you. W Energy, pretty great. You know, I have it in the background of most of my videos now. Over there. And subscribe to the Patreon. We have started releasing our videos, podcast a week early. So if you're interested in that, you can join at simply the $1 tier. Not only do you get access to exclusive content that's not even up on YouTube, you also get access to videos a week early, mostly podcasts. If you'd like, I can release Fairy Fountain news a day earlier as well. But we don't have any subscribers on there yet. So, yeah. So thank you guys so much for watching this sort of roundup video. Fairy Fountain News will be returning soon, but I couldn't avoid talking about this any longer. Maybe I'll wake up tomorrow and they'll say, oh, here's the date for when the trailer is going to come out. So who knows at this point. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.